Camp Fire, as you may or may not know, has been the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California history. Leveled something around 17,000 structures. 86 people have died as a result of it.
Wildfires are raging in California right now.
We brought 200 sunrisers to Nancy Pelosi's office to demand that Democrats who say that they care about what the science says actually back up their words with action.
If Pelosi wants to study the impact of climate change, she should go back to her home state of California, where people are dying and burning like the town of Paradise.
Young people were telling stories of how their families had lost homes in fires years past. It was electric. It led to the country awakening to the urgency of this issue in a whole new way.
Paradise is not just like a representation of my town. It can represent everybody's town because this is becoming our new reality.
We have a really incredible opportunity to take this movement and run with it because we don't have that much time. This is our last hope, frankly.
After the Camp Fire, young people in Northern California found themselves on the front lines of the climate crisis. In this second of a three-part series, Sunrise endorses its first congressional candidate in the 2020 election. And we meet activists impacted by the fire who are fighting for a Green New Deal.
My name is Michaela Butson. I'm 22 years old, and I'm currently a senior at UC Santa Barbara. And I come from Magalia, California, which was damaged in the 2018 Camp Fire. I decided to get up early to study for a test I had. And my mom just sent me this picture, just getting off of one of her early morning shifts. And she just looked over from Chico up at Paradise, and she just saw this. It was cloudy and fiery, and she's like, what is that? What's happening? And she realized it was fire. And everyone else was looking at it like, what is going on? No emergency alerts, nobody knew what was happening. So she drove up Skyway to get to my brother. Skyway is the road that leads to Paradise and up through Magalia, where we live. The next thing I know, I got a call from her saying, do you want me to grab anything from your room? We're evacuating. I lost contact with them for several hours, and so I was just on every Facebook page online, watching videos of people driving through fire. I was thinking, like, what if they're dead? What's happening? They were going down Skyway, and that was the road that was on fire. So my mom made the decision to turn around and drive up through the mountains. And if she hadn't done that, she probably would have had to drive through the fire and might not have survived. When they finally made it to Chico, it'd probably been 4 or 5 hours. I got a call from them, and they said, we made it out. We don't really know where to go. So they came and stayed with me for about a week.
We no longer talk about a fire season in California. We are having fires every single month, which is unprecedented here. We just had an incredible destructive fire in November. We're usually deep into the winter rains by that. But this year, we had record dryness, 280 days without rain.
Mark Steeman is a professor of geography and planning at California State University in Chico, where he has taught generations of students about the impacts of climate change. Now his hometown is having to adapt.
This is a whole new normal that we're having to deal with. And it's not just fires, it's floods. It's all kinds of other disasters that we're having to deal with up here. We just had the entire town of Paradise, Magalia, Concau burned out and all evacuated to Chico. It's put a lot of strain on our community. We've gone by 20,000 people overnight. And we really need to be mindful because this is now what we're going to be experiencing on a regular basis.
The cost of climate disasters like the Camp Fire is rising, whether you measure it in dollars or in lives. That's why Sunrise argues that a Green New Deal, essentially a massive government investment in programs to cut greenhouse gas emissions to net zero, create low-carbon jobs, and stop global warming, makes economic sense.
We are paying for this crisis right now. The U.S. economy spends billions of dollars every single year, hundreds of billions of dollars every single year dealing with the fires and floods and hurricanes that are already devastating huge swaths of America. So we either invest now or we pay later.
My name is Sophia Lepore. I am a student here at Chico State. We're in the beautiful Chico, California. I am the media and outreach coordinator for the Sunrise Movement. On November 8th, I woke up just like any other day and the sun never came out. We realized really quickly that the fire wasn't just a 10-acre fire. It was kind of like an out-of-body experience almost. It was so strange to hear about all of these places that I'm so familiar with, and hearing these horrible stories about people being trapped in their cars and, you know, families that I know being impacted, having to evacuate. We need to start addressing climate change like the crisis that it is. This semester I'm in a climate activism class, and so essentially we students get to choose the issue that we think is most important to address in terms of something that's unsustainable about the university. We decided that students be taught climate change education in all fields of study, because that is just simply not the case right now. I think that the most important thing to gather from this experience is that, yes, it has become the talk of the school. This is what the students want. It's a clear message. I owe a lot to my wonderful professor, Dr. Mark, who taught us to resist, who taught us resilience.
And people were just showing up and not leaving.
We are an amazing creature in that if we think we can do something, we will do it. But if we don't think we can do something, we deny it.
There would be times when we would read an article in his class that's so devastating, that's so horrible, but he let us channel that energy into something productive. Once you're able to start those conversations and see that people do care, they just might not know prior, that fire keeps you going. Eventually, they have to listen, you know, and it's just a matter of when that's going to happen, I think.
Northern California's economy relies on big agriculture, from rice farms to cattle ranches. But Cheetah Chudy and Samantha Zangrilli were trying a smaller, more diverse approach, selling meat from pasture-raised sheep and pigs alongside duck eggs and flowers. That was before the fire.
Campfire, it rolled at the rate of 1 football field per second, and it was something totally different than most California wildfires.
We could hear the propane tanks exploding, which to us are triggers, like, okay, this is hot enough to where it's a structure fire and it's exploding the propane tanks, so that means it's gonna be bad. So we decided to evacuate. She does the truck, so he takes the sheep and ducks. I squeezed all the guardian dogs in my car.
Our home was completely destroyed. It was just a pile of sheet metal on the ground.
So our house was the cement slab, basically, and the greenhouses were behind it.
Basically, they applied martial law. We were limited on the amount of animals we could fit, so we had to leave all of our pigs and some of our sheep behind.
We didn't realize that we wouldn't be returning for 26 days. I don't think anybody did.
Cheetah managed to get a permit to return to the farm to check on the animals left behind. He found that all but 20 ducks survived.
I've got a neighbor that came in on the same permit with a good water supply and a generator, so I was able to trailer water onto the property for those animals.
We had 60 ducks and 30 sheep and 5 baby lambs and 7 dogs at my best friend's flower farm. And it was just incredibly generous of so many people in Chico to accommodate a whole community, basically, for 26 days.
Now let's see. Hopefully we can get into the parking lot. See, I don't even know where to turn anymore. I don't even think this is the entrance. Yeah, this is definitely it. I think when I started dancing here, I didn't have any friends. I mean, I was homeschooled for middle school, and I made friends here. It's the first time I'm seeing it in person, which is like worse than I imagined it, I guess. I don't cry, but like it is emotional. So.
6 months after the fire, crews are still pulling down power lines and removing toxic debris. In Paradise, the water is contaminated by benzene, a compound linked to cancer. The city estimates the cleanup will cost more than $2 billion, and former residents of the area are making painful choices.
My mom and my brother decided not to return to Magalia. I mean, there's not really much left for them here. She was a house cleaner for many years, and almost all the houses that we cleaned are gone now. My mom is really struggling with PTSD and also with finding a job. But this was my house here. She was a single mom for so long. She had a cleaning business. Then she was a medical transportation driver, and all of her clients were displaced by the fire. So they made the choice to sell our home as is. We had about 2 days to pack up our whole lives.
Here we are 6 months later, we're still don't have electricity, still don't have any real running water. I'm still leaning on the same friend to import water for our livestock. It's been a bit of a rodeo.
The communities devastated by the Camp Fire are represented in Congress by Republican Doug LaMalfa.
What do we know so far about the Green New Deal? It's more like a green pipe dream. It ignores the basic reality that a lot of what America was built upon were indeed fossil fuels, those known reserves that we have in this country.
As recently as 2018, he questioned the scientific consensus that human activity is driving global warming. In the last election cycle, almost half LaMalfa's campaign contributions came from corporate donor groups, big agriculture, casinos, and also the oil and gas industry.
I didn't think until recently, actually, that we would come out of this. The government's not going to change their ways. The fossil fuel companies and the gas companies have these huge stakes in politics that they shouldn't have. My teacher, actually, John Foran, recommended me to give a speech with Sunrise, and that's when I got involved with Sunrise. It gives you something to fight for a Green New Deal, and this is actually a possibility that we can actually save the earth and ourselves and all of the animals that are going extinct and really hurting right now.
Do you want to be kissed? The first time I ran, I was 33 years old, and I said, even as a 33-year-old educator with no policy experience, I am more equipped to hold this office than a climate change denier.
Audrey Denny is running against Doug LaMalfa in 2020 for the second time.
So this part of California is very, very rural. It's very agricultural in nature, and I grew up on a family farm. And so from the very beginning of my life, I have been immersed in agriculture.
Yeah, this is the year. Yeah. Oh, and it's toasty in here.
The Green New Deal isn't a plan to mitigate climate change. Right? It's a commitment to the belief that we can. I want to be the policymaker that comes alongside and says, here are the pragmatic policy changes that we need to put in place right now to mitigate climate change, but also to benefit the people who live in the first district. Total in my district last year, we lost 93 lives in climate-related wildfires, right? The causes of these fires are very complex. Climate change is changing our fire reality. Old energy infrastructure combined with really, really unhealthy forest ecosystems are leading to this mire and this incredible threat, right? But in the forests, we also have the solution to mitigating climate change and creating great jobs for the people who live in this district.
Denny gets really excited about the policy solutions that could be part of a Green New Deal, whether she's talking about turning woody biomass into renewable jet fuel.
What? We can turn this forest product that is harming us, right, that is making our forests unsafe, and we can turn it into a low carbon fuel. That fact alone should blow your mind.
Or about carbon sequestration.
Plants have the ability to take atmospheric carbon out of the atmosphere where it's a bad thing and store it in the soil where it's a good thing. And there's so much that we can do with our farmers as well to make sure that they're equipped and trained to use the agricultural practices that help us store and sequester carbon in the soil.
You know, I've got a vested interest because I am a livestock farmer of carbon cap and trade, this concept that emissions somewhere could be offset by our positive growing practices here, by our sustainable grazing practices, assuming we're doing them correctly.
This is all new growth from right after the fire, and look at how wonderful it is. Like, the land is having no problem bouncing back at all. I also like to attribute that to the shepherding, the moving of the animals constantly.
A long-term goal is working towards ecosystem service markets, working towards carbon markets, where our farmers and ranchers who are heroes, right? They're stewarding the public's air and the public's water and the public's soil, where they are paid and compensated for that.
In Chico, there's been a sense of urgency since the fire. The city passed a declaration of climate emergency in April, and activists are rallying around the Green New Deal.
About 5 weeks ago, more or less, someone came into my climate activism class and announced that there was this new club, Sunrise, starting, and I thought, oh, like what an awesome idea. I went to the first meeting, and about a week later, the national hub announced that they were going on a nationwide tour and that we were one of the destinations.
We have really had a huge influx of energy across the country. I mean, we went from having just 20 local chapters to having over 200 in almost every single state in America.
We've been kind of scrambling like crazy to create this community so we could have that baseline of people ready and waiting for the tour.
Without running water on the farm, Samantha has no flowers to sell at the market. But she and Cheetah persevere, convinced that producing healthy food is worth the struggle.
When you go through a traumatic experience, you definitely weigh where you are in your life and if you want to continue on the same path. So I pulled the wife card and was like, we are not leaving. And this time around, I can already see a difference in our community. They've really held us up through this whole process. We've definitely been more courageous in asking for what we're worth because we're out here and we're trying to make a living.
We talk about the Green New Deal as this national issue, but in reality, the way that it will be implemented is locally. Looking at our farmers markets, for example, it's important to address that our local community has to be nourished.
This is about taking a broad economic vision for American society and applying it really at the local level, using that momentum and energy to boost the local work that's already happening and engage thousands of new people in the process.
This is so beautiful. Such a fun town. Come on, team.
I think that the sense of community that I felt with my fellow climate activists was one of the most crucial parts in this movement for me. Now that I do have a voice, how to use it and how to make the most change with that, I think is a crucial thing to learn. It's so powerful, and it gives you so much energy and so much fire. What was your name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy Sophia.
I was on the call with you.
Oh, that's right. And that sense of community is really special because with that energy, with that passion, you kind of just bounce off of each other and it just gets greater and greater.
The strength of Sunrise lies in the army of young people it's gathering to stop climate change and create good jobs for everyone, especially communities on the front lines of climate catastrophe. But their strategy involves electing American politicians who will turn that vision into policy.
Good evening, Chico!
I am tired of our representatives, of the people who are supposed to be fighting for our best interests, who are supposed to be protecting our families, allowing big fossil fuel companies to control their positions on issues that pertain to our lives and to our futures.
We want to ensure that every presidential candidate, every congressperson, candidates down ballot are being pushed on this question of, do you support a Green New Deal, and will you make it a priority as soon as you get elected into the halls of power?
We know that there is corruption, and we know that the richest people in our society control more than their share of resources. But we also know there is something that we can do about it, right? And the Sunrise Movement is doing that work. They're doing the work to organize. They're doing the work to make our voices heard. And they're doing the work to elect a new generation of leaders who are not responsible, not beholden to corporations and special interests, who are not beholden to the fossil fuel industry, and who reject political partisan gamesmanship.
In her first campaign, Denny promised not to take money from the fossil fuel industry. At this event, she pledges to back the Green New Deal and becomes the first congressional candidate for 2020 to earn Sunrise support.
We are so excited to say that Sunrise Movement's first endorsement of the election cycle will be to Audrey Denny!
Yeah, buddy.
That is our strategy from now till 2020, but also beyond. Because even if we have politicians who purport to care about our values, we're gonna need to continue to push them and hold them accountable, because it's not gonna be an easy ride. We are going to be ensuring that every time there is a major flood or a hurricane or a fire that is claiming the lives of Americans, that people across this nation are standing up and saying this is a national emergency, and our politicians need to treat it like one. We rise up till it's won.
I think about all of the people that were impacted by the fire. If there's anything we can do to stop it, we have to do it, because I don't want anybody else to have to go through this.
Then you try to stop us, but we keep coming back.
In the final episode of this series, we meet Sunrise activists from Eastern Kentucky.
Our natural resources are exhausted, our bodies broken, our spirits crushed, and now we have nothing to offer. But we are here to tell you that we deserve better.
And we learned what a Green New Deal could mean for communities built on coal.
Appalachia is one of the poorest communities in America. The thought of the Green New Deal lifting them all out of it and getting everybody a clean job and a livable wage and making my people's lives better almost brings me to tears.